Morning, this is the top of White Mesa. I climbed all the way up here, and now I'm not sure why because there ain't that much of a view. But the real reason I'm stopping here is that with only an occasional current like this one, I'm having a lot of trouble following the trail, so I need to take a break and break out the GPS and set up tracking. But while we're at it, let's talk some anime.
Like the clouds, like the wind.
Kuma no Yo, Kaze no Yo, or Like the Clouds, Like the Wind, is an historical fiction anime set around 17th century China. When the old emperor dies, his eldest son inherits the throne. But the dowager empress and her allies at the imperial palace prefer the younger son, and they may resort to assassination to make that happen. So the new emperor needs an heir to solidify his rule and protect his life, and the sooner the better. And for that, he's going to need a wife. So the search is on to fill the young emperor's harem. Ginga is a young peasant girl who answers one of the advertisements. The job of concubine sounds pretty good to her. Compared to picking rice, benefits include 3 meals a day and a nap. Ginga's got spunk. On the long journey back to the capital, the escorting eunuch, Inu, sees Ginga as a diamond in the rough. When Ginga gets to the palace, she's roomed with 3 other bridal candidates. The snobbish and vain Shehana, the small and standoffish Koyo, and the blade-twirling Tamyun. They're among dozens of other bridal candidates. All these candidates need to be trained in etiquette, history, philosophy, grace, and charm. Luckily, they have an exciting teacher. Ginga seems a fish out of water among the caravan and in the world of the imperial palace, an unrefined country bumpkin who's too quick to speak her mind and question her teachers. Those candidates who pass these classes become concubines. One lucky woman will get to be the first wife. Those who fail get to go back home. The competition is on. This will make a great reality TV show, Who Wants to Marry an Emperor?
5年ですか ?3 年ですかそれとも1年
まあまあ、さて時間が来たようだから今日の講義はこれで終わり。
紅葉もそう思うでしょさあ。
銀河、先生がお呼びだぞ。
Meanwhile, not only are there assassins hunting for the new emperor within the imperial palace, but there's a revolt going on out in the provinces. Kumakaze begins with more or less a light comic touch, and gradually becomes more of an adventure story as the plot heats up and gets serious towards the end. Ginga has spirit and strength, intelligence, a friendly nature, and lots of energy, and she's not shy about pitching in with whatever needs to be done. In short, Ginga makes a very winsome heroine. And yet, the latter half of the movie, when there's more drama and more action, the thing didn't seem to quite come together properly for me. A couple of the characters will die, and those deaths will provoke the proper emotional responses. The ending takes an unexpected turn, improbable perhaps, but not absurd, certainly not predictable, and not bad either. What it did seem to do was abruptly shift the focus. What I think the plot really lacked was a villain. Protagonist, antagonist, conflict, climax, resolution. What happens when the antagonist won't twirl his mustache and cackle? Early on, while there's competition among the harem girls, even the most snobbish among them are just snobs. They're not actually nasty. Later, there are some assassins and spies about, but they're faceless minions, and the politicians behind them are out of sight, and they don't loom over the story as any sort of real threat. And as for the provincial revolt, it's just some good old boys having fun. You can have a great story without bad guys, of course, but in this case it just seems that too much bad happens, and we need someone to at least blame at the end, even if we don't punish them. Maybe there were just too many story elements to develop properly in an hour and 20 minutes of movie. By the way, the story comes from a novel, Palace Harem Story, by Kenichi Sakeni. The artwork of Kumakaze is pleasant enough. The movie was made as a TV special in 1990, not as a theatrical release, so it may seem to lack some of the polish and detail of a theatrical presentation. The exterior scenery is appropriately lush, as is the palace interior and exterior, though it may lack some fine detail. It stands above most OVAs and TV series and a lot of budget movies of the period. You may have already noticed that Kumakaze has the look of a Studio Ghibli production, though it's actually from Studio Pierrot. It's directed by Hisayuki Toriuni, who has directed the original Area 8 OVAs, among others. The Ghibli look no doubt comes from Kazuo Kondo, who did the character designs and served as animation director for Kumokaze. Kondo had the same role on Kiki Delivery Service, as well as working on Laputa, Totoro, and later on Omoa de Poro Poro and Porco Rosso. So it's not surprising that he brought a sort of Ghibli house style to this made-for-TV movie too. Even the music has a sort of faux Ghibli sound to it, though it's not by a Ghibli regular either. I give Kumokaze 4 stars, mostly on the strength of its winsome heroine, pleasant artwork, and the enjoyable first 2/3 of the movie. It seems like it should have been deserving of a little more, especially since the ending was different from the cliché I was expecting. But I just couldn't buy the transition from the majority of the movie to the last 10 minutes. And by the way, I should mention that although this is literally a harem anime, it's not what US anime fans think of when they say harem anime. It's sexually bland, though there is some violence. Kuma no Yo Kaze no Yo has never had a North American release, which is why I've stuck to my old Laserdisc.
Well, there we are. At least I'll be able to find my way back down. Thanks for listening.